For many people, biodiversity is something that is associated with rural areas, where you can see the various species of plants and animals alive and thriving. I sent a simple survey to know about the people's awareness of biodiversity in China and the UK. More than half of them thought biodiversity exists in rural places. However, according to some secondary research from websites and libraries, I found two important points. One is that urbanization poses one of the greatest threats to global biodiversity. Yet, surprisingly, cities can be critical for native biodiversity conservation, which was point 2. So, it's important to remember that biodiversity also exists in cities and other urban areas, and perhaps the reason we don't notice biodiversity so easily in these places is because we need to help it flourish. And there are two sustainable goals are to make cities more sustainable and halt biodiversity loss. So, my initial problem statement was biodiversity in the cities is overlooked. To narrow down it, I made a city system from the functional perspective, trying to focus on one aspect of the city and one group of different kinds of people, economy, culture, or policy. After doing this, I realized that this was still broad to continue, and whatever the function was, there would be a certain institution behind it. So I changed the angle and made another map. I listed the institutions and organizations. This was more concrete and the related people were obvious. Finally, I chose the universities. The reason was that when I did secondary research to look for the biodiversity at universities, almost every result was about suburban campus. And many institutions in cities were now taking steps to improve their environmental performance, such as carbon emissions, energy, and waste. But few consider biodiversity to be a priority within their environmental strategy. However, universities can provide highly valuable resources for biodiversity. Another reason was the spatial feature of universities was representative. They are located across the city, like the cities are located around the globe, and it was practical to research at UAL. After that, I made the whole system to clarify my point and made the problem statement more specific. Biodiversity at universities is often overlooked, especially for universities which are located in cities. One of the most important things I learned was that focus on one point each time and also be aware of the interaction and complexity of the whole system. The next step was to do some primary research. I started with the stakeholder map to demonstrate which kind of people were involved, and then thinking about what did I look for from them, as well as research tools, in-depth interview, intercept interview, and so on. This was a guideline for me to keep on going. Before the interview, I planned to know about biodiversity at UAL, like what had they done for biodiversity, how was the staff's and the students' engagement, was there any related action? But during the in-depth interview with an experienced staff, I realized that biodiversity included plants, animals, and existed in projects and physical sites. So I needed to choose one point due to the time reason. From a practical perspective, I decided to focus on the plants and physical sites. In other words, green spaces. Even though covered by plants, they could also attract more pollinators, like bees and butterflies. They could be seen as a small system that increases biodiversity at college. In order to find some plans and action about green spaces, I also got UAL's biodiversity action plan from the website and found one of the green spaces was the plants garden at CSM. At first, to find more about the viewpoint from stakeholders, I did some intercept interviews there. After asking 15 students and 5 staff randomly, there were only 2 persons know it. Why so many people didn't know it, even though they lacked green spaces? Subsequently, I got access to the garden, taking some pictures and videos, and talked with the originator. What I got was that this garden was not open for everyone, and every week just opened once. Besides that, I also talked with and sent the email to several members of staff to know about the green spaces at UAL from their perspectives. So far, I had collected data sets like tests, videos, photos, and numbers. I listed the discoveries and gave a conclusion for each group. Limited spaces, less cooperation between students and staff, weak awareness about diversity at college. These seemed problems, but they were also the opportunities to increase the number of green spaces and protect biodiversity. Based on these opportunities, my friends and I brainstormed, talking about how to turn those opportunities into ideas. After a brief testing on those ideas, we chose the idea of green wall, which also had been implemented in some places. The plants would be planted directly into the wall and attract pollinators. They could raise our awareness of biodiversity, even though they were fragmented. Besides that, they would also provide a common place for students and staff to talk and relax. It was not tested specifically, and some problems would occur in practice. However, it would be a start for all of us to be aware of biodiversity at universities and cities.